What's up everyone, Lion Roar here, and we have a brand new Ranger clan, sort of, in Bloodline Heroes of Lithis. It is the KIVAK clan. Let me explain. But first, download Bloodline Heroes of Lithis, a mobile RPG action fighting game where you can marry your champions to create new and unique hybrids. Use the link in the description to start with some free stuff, including golden diamonds. See you hopefully soon. Alright, so we're going to start out by analyzing the new clan trait, and then we're going to take a look at the new champions individually, both the male and the female, to examine their abilities, skills, and passives, and decide which one might be better, the male or the female. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about other traits that might be good on them and team synergies and things like that. But I just want to start with the art, which I know is a divisive one for this one, but I kind of like it. Obviously, the color scheme kind of matches what I'm doing here, but also it's just kind of unique art among other champions in the game. We haven't really seen this yet, except for maybe like the blue skin. Now, I know it's kind of a fantasy trope to have something like this, but what movie, book, or game are you playing these days that doesn't have like a half deer man hybrid thing that shows up in like every type of fantasy? But like, what fantasy are you watching that does not have things that other fantasy has, right? Anyway, let's start out by looking at the clan trait. It is called Impair, and it says it increases enemies' damage taken by some percent. This is an epic hero, so it's 4% for 4 seconds when normal attacks or skills land on them. And this is the important part. It stacks up to 3 layers. Okay? So, that has the potential to build up a lot of damage. And in this day and age, in Bloodline Heroes of Lithis, the 2 best things you can be doing are speed and damage. If you can get the entire match over with in PvP in 15 seconds, you're doing the right thing. Unfortunately, this is not a control meta. This is a speed meta, an aggressive meta. And so something like this is going to do very well. I think this clan trait has the potential to be pretty good, in particular against PvE, like against the expedition bosses, the raid bosses, any bosses for that matter. Just imagine something like this on a Travaine. So for people who want to up their PvE game, this has the potential to be very good. I could also see it being very good in PvP if used correctly. But as of right now, traits come at a premium. There's only so many slots. You'd have to be very wise in choosing which kind of champion this trait would go on. But let's take a look at these heroes in particular. I'm starting out with the male in the renowned champion section, so we can look at maxed out skills just to kind of answer the question, is it worth it to put all of our resources into maxing out this hero? Okay, as you can see here, this is a ranger. I mentioned that at the beginning, but when we take a look at the skills and abilities, he's only kind of a ranger. Anyway, let's take a look at the passive. KIVAK Marksmanship. The caster possesses 2 combat forms. Marksman, which is ranged, and Warrior, which is melee. And he receives bonus buffs from each form. While in Marksman form, the caster's attack speed is increased by 30%. There's the speed we were talking about earlier. And each attack deals additional damage equal to 12% of the target's current constitution. Again, another keyword against PvE. Capped at 500% of the caster's strength. I wish that that number was a little higher, but that's okay. We'll move on and assess the whole thing altogether. While in warrior form, the caster's strength is increased by 25%, and each attack deals additional damage equal to 12% of the target's constitution loss, capped at 500% of the caster's strength. Each time the caster switches form, the buff from the previous form will be kept for 3 seconds. So remember, the trait can stack. This can stack a little bit, and then this effect cannot be removed and doesn't stack. Even though it's saying it doesn't stack, it's kind of sticking around. It's not a real stack. That's why I said kind of. Okay, let's take a look at the active skill, Tactical Transformation. If cast in Marksman form, dashes to the current target, dealing damage equal to 520% of the caster's strength, inflicting stunned for 3 seconds, then switching to Warrior form. If cast in Warrior form, attacks the current target, dealing damage equal to 520% the caster's strength, knocking back the enemy, and inflicts lockdown for 3 seconds. Lockdown is new. Backing off a short distance and switches to marksman form. Gotta be quite honest, I don't know what lockdown means yet. This is a new keyword. So we're going to have to test it to see what this is. Now, there may be people who are watching this video who already tested it and know what lockdown means. Please comment on this video. Let us know what lockdown is, because that's the time I'm making it. I just haven't done that research yet. And I want you to share with the community what that is, so we can all learn from you. All right, let's look at the ultimate skill, Combat Zeal. Immediately receives the bonus buffs from both combat forms, which can simultaneously exist with passive skills buffs. The caster becomes immune to control effects and gains 25% life steal for 8 seconds. That's a lot of life steal in a long time. A lot of battles sometimes don't even last 8 seconds. During this period, each attack reduces the active skill's cooldown by 12%. Okay, so that's a lot of text here. And what's so interesting about all of this text is it's hard to tell what's actually happening. Like, I think when we watch him in action, you're not going to see much actually occurring. And I think people are probably going to underestimate him for that reason. And even if you look at the final stats, except PvE, I think he's going to stand out in PvE. But I think if you look at the final stats, it's not really going to tell the whole story of what he's doing. There's a little bit of control here with stun. There's increased speed. There's increased strength. I think there's the possibility for him to do a lot of damage. I'm not saying he's not. I just think that he's going to require a fair bit of testing. In fact, I think the female is too. We're going to take a look at it, because this is one of the more mysterious types of pre-release skill looking options without testing that I've ever done. Remember, when I do these introductory videos to a clan, this is all speculation. I haven't even summoned yet. But here's what I think, just breaking it down and kind of summarizing what the skill does. You get these buffs here on the passive side, switching back and forth between warrior and marksman, where things are happening like speed is increased, or like damage increased, strength increased. And also doing damage to the target's constitution, which is what you'd like to see from like the Travains or some other champions that are really good in PvE. Same thing in the skill. We're switching back and forth between the warrior and the ranger here. This one's dealing up some straight damage. And then I think the ultimate is so interesting, because part of me thinks, while the ultimate could be good, that's like not the main thing going on here. This is one of the first clans I can remember where a lot of the main stuff that's actually happening in the match is coming from the passives and the active skills. Of course, there are other champions with great active skills and things, but the ultimate is like always usually the best thing it's doing, and that's not necessarily the case here. It almost looks to me like the ultimate is kind of another passive almost. It's not a very aggressive. It's not dealing a lot of damage. It's not shutting them down with control. It is making him immune from control, though. So, you know, as long as the passive and the active skill allow him to deal a lot of damage, the ultimate's going to kind of allow that to keep going. And it's going to keep him alive with the life steal. So, yeah, you're definitely going to want to throw Brutal onto him. You might even want to consider a type of trait that's going to increase damage output, perhaps the new Corbett trait, for example. There's others as well. I mean, just Fierce. If you're not about putting clan traits on or don't have the resources, Fierce is another one you could potentially consider for a guy like this. I think he should probably be built like a glass cannon. Try to use other champions to protect him, but just max out your ability to deal damage and have high strength. And so that's what I think his purpose is going to be. Let's take a look at the female now. Her passive is KIVAK Piercing Spear. When using normal attacks or active skill, the spear has a 30% chance to trigger a piercing effect, which ignores 30% of the target's strength, resistance, and fortitude. When being triggered, recovers the caster's constitution by 25% of the damage dealt. So she's also gaining life from damage, and also reduces the active skill's cooldown by 10%. All right, Nimble Pounce is the active skill. Leaps backward and throws spears at 4 random enemies, including the current target. Now, the first time I read this skill, I thought everything that's happening here is really cool. We're going to have to unravel the text a little bit, though. If there are enemies nearby when casting, the caster leaps in the opposite direction of the nearest enemy and throws spears at 4 random enemies. Again, we're speculating because I haven't tested this out, but this is where we need some clarity from what's happening here. Is she throwing 4 spears, and then if there's enemies nearby, like dropping back and throwing 4 more? Or is it just like she throws 4, but if there's enemies nearby, she pounces backwards first and then does it? We're just going to have to wait to see. The way I'm reading this is that she's going to throw 4 spears. And then, if there's enemies nearby, she's going to throw 4 more and kind of get away from them to protect herself a little bit. Each spear deals damage equal to 380% of the caster's strength and inflicts silence for 1 second. Gains immunity while leaping backwards. Of course, you know I love my control effects. Silence is fine there. That's not a whole lot of time. It's not going to shut down opponents like stun locking types of opponent or types of champions might. But yeah. Okay, so that has the potential to be really good as far as an active skill, dealing a lot of area of effect damage. Battlefield Maneuver is the ultimate. Upon casting, immediately refresh the active skills cooldown. See, these ultimates are more about like active skills and passives than they are about the actual ultimate. Increases attack speed by 40% for 7 seconds, during which spears are thrown by the active skill and normal attack have 100% hit rate and doubles the passive skill's chance to trigger the piercing effect. So once again, we get an ultimate that's just really helping the active skill. You know, it's not a particularly aggressive ultimate. She is going to do more damage. She's going to speed up. So you do kind of want to get that ball rolling. And unlike the male, who I feel like is going to be the better PvE type of champion, the female I think is probably going to be the better PvP champion. Mainly because she does have a little bit of control, but it looks like she's going to do a lot of damage to 4 opponents each time she's throwing these spears. And if you can give her a whole lot of speed, attack speed, and damage, and she gets rolling on this ultimate, she's just going to repeat that active skill over and over and over again and just deal a ton of area of effect damage to the opponents. So I think her skill is a lot simpler. Obviously, there's a lot less text to this. I am not sure yet if these champions are good. Like I said earlier, it's going to take a fair bit of testing to tell. I think the male has a chance to be an all-star at PvE and potentially good at PvP. I think the female has a chance to be good at PvP. Potentially she could be used PvE too. But that's how I would probably look at these if you're going to be summoning for them and deciding which one to go with, male or female. My heart, not my head, but my heart is kind of pulling towards the male being the better one overall. But I just don't know. Guys, for the first time, I'm a little unsure just reading the text what this is going to be like. But I've always said before, whenever I'm reading this, it's hard to tell in a preview if the hero is actually good or not. We have a recent example of this. I thought male Corbett would be pretty good. He is way better than I thought he was going to be. You can't tell until you actually get in there and play with them and test them. And so let's test. If you enjoy videos like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification. And I will catch you in the next one.